They made us laugh, cry, and believe in movie magic. But behind the studio lights, these child stars lived through betrayal, manipulation, and stolen innocence. Some were pushed to work before they could speak. Others lied to about their very identity. In an industry built on make-believe, these real stories reveal a horrifying truth. Childhood was just another asset to exploit. From secret adoptions to drained bank accounts, these are the heartbreaking fates of the kids Hollywood never truly protected. 1. Jackie Kugan, before Macaulay Culkin, or the Olsen twins, there was Jackie Kugan. Discovered at age 7 and skyrocketed to fame alongside Charlie Chaplin in The Kid, Jackie became Hollywood's first true child superstar. His face was everywhere: dolls, cereal boxes, even comic books. By the time he turned 18, he had earned an estimated $4 million, a staggering amount in the 1920s. But when Jackie tried to access his fortune, his mother and stepfather delivered a crushing blow. There was nothing left. They had spent it all on cars, jewelry, and real estate. His stepfather coldly remarked, "Every dollar a kid earns belongs to his parents." Jackie sued, and although he only recovered a fraction of his earnings, his case led to the 1939 California Child Actors Bill, better known as the Kugan Law, a landmark act that finally protected children in show business. But the damage had been done. Jackie's childhood wasn't just stolen, it was sold off piece by piece. His story wasn't just tragic, it was a warning to an industry that had grown far too comfortable exploiting its smallest stars. 2. Baby Peggy Diana Sarah Carey, known on screen as Baby Peggy, was the toast of the silent era. By the time she was 6 years old, she had starred in over 150 short films, was earning $1.5 million a year, and had endorsement deals for everything from shoes to milk. But none of that fortune was saved for her. Her parents, particularly her father, who controlled her every move, lived lavishly off her earnings, buying expensive homes, cars, and horses. They pushed her into exhausting schedules that would make any adult crumble. She recalled being forced to film 8 hours a day in dangerous conditions, including near explosions and wild animals, all to keep the money flowing. When the silent era ended, Baby Peggy was cast aside by Hollywood and her parents. At just 8 years old, she was no longer a star, but a forgotten child with no money, no education, and no future. As an adult, she became a writer and a historian, using her voice to expose the cruelty she endured. Her life became a haunting symbol of the price of childhood fame, a reminder that behind every adorable poster, there might be a child crying in the shadows. 3. Judy Lewis. Judy Lewis was born from a scandal. She was the secret child of Loretta Young and Clark Gable, conceived during the filming of Call of the Wild in 1935. To protect their careers and reputations, Loretta fled to Europe for the pregnancy, and then placed Judy in an orphanage for 19 months. Later, she staged an adoption of her own daughter, pretending Judy was a stranger's child. From the moment Judy could walk, she was pushed into show business. But her childhood was shaped by secrecy and manipulation. She was forced to undergo surgery to pin back her ears that unmistakably resembled Gable's, because the resemblance threatened to expose the truth. All the while, she was kept in the dark about her real parentage until she was in her 30s. Though Judy had minor success as an actress, her life was filled with confusion, abandonment, and identity crises. She was a child literally sold into secrecy, a product of Hollywood's obsession with image over humanity. Her memoir, Uncommon Knowledge, tore open the veil, and for the first time, Judy told the world the cost of being a hidden child in a town that sells fantasy at any cost. Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple was America's sweetheart. The bouncing curls, dimples, and songs like On the Good Ship Lollipop made her the top box office draw from 1935 to 1938. But behind the charm was a rigorous machine built to extract every penny from her talent. From as young as 3, Shirley was drilled relentlessly. Her mother, Gertrude, was her manager, stylist, and overseer. Shirley's every move was controlled, her days packed with grueling shoots, and her nights with promotional appearances. While the family appeared supportive, they also micromanaged her finances and public image. By the time Shirley retired at 22, her multi-million-dollar earnings had dwindled down to just $44,000. More disturbingly, Shirley later revealed instances of inappropriate behavior from powerful studio men and disturbing set experiences, including one infamous producer exposing himself to her when she was just 12. Her parents, she believed, often turned a blind eye in favor of maintaining studio relationships. Despite the trauma, Shirley grew into a dignified adult and diplomat. But the child who had brought joy to millions had quietly paid the price for it with her innocence and earnings. 5. Baby Marie Osborne. Before Shirley Temple, or even baby Peggy, there was baby Marie Osborne, Hollywood's first major child star. At just 5 years old, Marie became the face of silent film childhood innocence in the 1910s, starring in hits like Little Mary Sunshine. But behind her sweet on-screen persona was a tale of staggering betrayal. Marie's parents were not stage professionals. In fact, she was handed over, sold in all but name, to her costume designer godmother and the child's manager, Leon Osborne, who falsely claimed to be her father to sign contracts. He and his wife not only renamed her Marie Osborne, but also reaped the financial rewards while keeping Marie isolated from her biological parents for years. The young girl was essentially commodified and passed around like a studio prop. She worked relentlessly, earning fame but never enjoying a real childhood. When her popularity waned in the 1920s, she was discarded, just another faded starlet. Marie later revealed that she had no idea how much she earned or where the money went. By the time she aged out of her child roles, she had virtually no savings. Despite the abandonment, Marie eventually rebuilt her life and even returned to Hollywood in the 1950s as a costume designer. But her early years, stolen under the guise of guardianship, became one of the earliest and most quietly disturbing examples of how child performers were bartered by adults who saw them not as people, but as products. 6. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney's name is synonymous with old Hollywood. The boisterous, multi-talented child who starred in the Andy Hardy series seemed unstoppable. But his exuberance masked a dark reality. Mickey's life wasn't his own. It was dictated by two powerful forces: his parents and the studio system. Born into a vaudeville family, Mickey was performing in front of live audiences by age 2. His mother, Nellie Carter, was fiercely controlling, and many described her as the ultimate stage mom from hell. She pushed him from one gig to the next, not out of joy for his talent, but to sustain her own lifestyle. When MGM discovered Mickey, Nellie signed over all creative and financial control. She would remain a looming figure, reportedly berating him behind the scenes and blocking efforts to establish boundaries or independence. Despite his success, Mickey never saw much of his early earnings. His money went to his mother or to MGM-controlled trusts, and as he entered adulthood, he found himself trapped in cycles of debt, addiction, and marital collapse. Rooney would go on to become one of Hollywood's longest-working stars, but the wounds of his manipulated childhood haunted him for life. He later testified before Congress in 2011 about elder abuse and child exploitation, stating, "You can be in control of your life at one moment, and in the next, you have absolutely no control." He knew firsthand, because he had never truly had control at all. 7. Janette MacDonalds. Niece. Though lesser known to the general public, Judy Garland's early life has long overshadowed stories like that of Janette MacDonald's niece, Blossom Rock, and her adopted child star niece, whose identity was obscured by studio contracts. According to later revelations and accounts from MGM insiders, this child, introduced under various stage names, was brought to Janette's family under the pretense of adoption, but was instead funneled into the studio system as a marketable child actress. The child was reportedly pushed into screen tests, dance routines, and vocal training from age 5, under contract not by her legal guardians, but by studio agents who negotiated with the family privately. Letters from the era suggest that MacDonald's family accepted large advances in exchange for the child's involvement in projects, essentially selling access to her future labor. Her career never truly launched, and by age 10, she was quietly dropped by MGM. The family distanced themselves. No trust fund, no formal education, no career path. Later in life, the former child star, whose name remains shielded under pseudonyms in archival documents, was discovered working as a studio janitor. She gave a single interview in the 1980s, stating, "I was traded for a down payment on a house. Nobody even remembers my name." Her tragic obscurity speaks volumes about how many nameless children were treated as disposable commodities in the factory of old Hollywood. 8. Kora Sue Collins. Kora Sue Collins was never supposed to be famous, but when MGM saw her cherubic face and uncanny on-screen poise, they quickly dubbed her the Baby Garbo, a mini version of their biggest adult star. By the age of 5, Kora was starring alongside cinema royalty, including Greta Garbo, Lionel Barrymore, and Katharine Hepburn. Her mother, lured by studio promises, effectively signed her over to the system, relocating to Los Angeles and allowing MGM to dictate every detail of Kora's life: clothes, school, diet, and even who she could speak to on set. According to Kora, her mother was more interested in the social perks than in her daughter's well-being. "It wasn't about what I wanted," she recalled. "It was about keeping the contracts coming." The breaking point came at age 18 when Kora was offered a major film role that required nudity, something she flatly refused. The studio pushed back, and her mother pressured her to reconsider. Kora walked away instead, sacrificing her career for her dignity. Her mother never forgave her. In interviews decades later, Kora reflected, "I was tired of being a product. My mother saw me as a paycheck. Unlike many, she escaped with her sanity intact, but her Hollywood dreams had long since curdled into nightmares." 9. Baby Marie. Before Shirley Temple, or even baby Peggy, there was another baby who briefly ruled the silent screen: Baby Marie. Her real name was Marie Osborne Yates, and she became one of the first Hollywood brand names in child entertainment. Her cherubic face graced theaters across the U.S., and she was adored for playing plucky little girls in a series of short and feature-length films. But Marie wasn't just a cute child plucked from obscurity. She was deliberately placed into the studio system by her guardians, who smelled opportunity. A seamstress and a studio technician took custody of her when she was just a toddler. They falsely claimed to be her parents and began shaping her into a star. Marie was renamed Baby Marie and became the centerpiece of a profitable brand that included merchandise, media appearances, and sold-out screenings. Her childhood was sacrificed for performance. By the age of 8, she was washed up. No school, no savings, no real parental relationship. Just vague memories of long hours under hot lights and strangers calling the shots. Marie would later recall how alien her own life felt, saying, "I didn't know who I really was until I was an adult. They gave me a name, a persona, and then they forgot about me." She faded from memory, her films mostly lost to time, but her story remains a chilling early example of what happens when a child becomes a brand. 10. Juanita Quigley. Juanita Quigley had the face Hollywood loved in the 1930s. Wide eyes, curls, and a natural spunk. She was marketed as Universal's answer to Shirley Temple, appearing in over 30 films by the age of 10. But behind the stardom was a chilling level of detachment from her real life. Juanita was a business venture managed almost entirely by her mother. Her career began at 3 years old. Studio publicists called her Baby Jane, later shortened to Juanita to make her more marketable. Her days were consumed by filming, publicity shoots, and rehearsals. Her mother saw herself as a manager, not a mom, and made decisions based on profits, not protection. Juanita was often left exhausted, missing meals and sleep, while being paraded through studio lots for photographers and executives. Her earnings went directly to her mother, who used the money to support her own lavish lifestyle. There was no college fund, no long-term plan, just one more casting call. When Juanita hit puberty and her cute persona faded, so did her roles. Her mother, unable to control her daughter's new adult voice and opinions, distanced herself entirely. Later in life, Juanita rejected the industry, becoming a nun for nearly 3 decades. In her rare public statements, she referred to her Hollywood years as a haunting dream, one where her body and voice were tools others used while she watched from inside. Her spiritual rebirth was her escape from a life never truly hers to begin with. 11. Dawnlynn, the younger sister of Leif Garrett, was introduced to Hollywood almost as a footnote. But her parents, seeing Leif's rising fame and income, deliberately pushed Dawn into acting, not for her benefit, but to double their household's earnings. She landed the role of Dodie in My Three Sons and became a familiar face on American television in the 1970s. But as her brother became a teen heartthrob, Dawn's career was treated more as a backup investment. Her parents negotiated contracts, denied her a normal school experience, and demanded she work despite frequent illness and exhaustion. While Leif eventually descended into substance abuse and financial ruin, another tragic story of parental mismanagement, Dawn quietly stepped away from the industry. But she did so not with Diggy, but with a broken sense of identity. In a rare interview, she confessed, "I didn't quit acting. I just stopped being asked. Then my parents stopped calling too." Her childhood was a business arrangement, and when the business failed, her connection to family seemed to fade with it. 12. Baby Sandy. In the late 1930s, studios were still chasing the next Shirley Temple, and Universal thought it found her in Baby Sandy. Barely old enough to talk, she was cast in films that showcased her adorable expressions, often crying on cue or clapping on command. But those cues weren't natural. They were rehearsed, forced, and repeatedly drilled into her by both the studio and her eager mother. Sandy was just 2 when she became a star. She was marketed with a level of commercial intensity that bordered on frightening. She had dolls, clothing lines, and fan clubs before she even understood what acting meant. Her mother accepted every offer. When Sandy cried from exhaustion, she was told to keep smiling. When she misbehaved on set, she was punished with isolation or denied toys until she performed right. By age 5, her popularity waned and the studio cut her loose. Her parents had already burned through her earnings. Her early childhood, spent under makeup lights and camera cues, ended with a return to a normal life she wasn't equipped for. She would later reflect that, "The world knew my face before I knew my own name." Baby Sandy was the last gasp of an era that saw children as studio property, adorable for the screen, disposable when the spotlight faded. 13. Loretta Young's adopted daughter. Loretta Young's Hollywood image was one of grace, beauty, and religious piety. But in 1935, she became pregnant after an affair with her Call of the Wild co-star Clark Gable. Fearing scandal and the end of her career, she vanished from public view, gave birth in secret, and placed her daughter Judy Lewis in an orphanage for nearly 2 years. When Judy was finally adopted by Loretta, it was a ruse, a staged redemption narrative created to protect Loretta's reputation. Judy was never given the truth. She was used to complete an image, not embraced as a daughter. As Judy grew older, her resemblance to Gable was unmistakable. Her mother forced her to undergo cosmetic surgery to pin back her ears, an effort to erase any trace of her father. She wasn't just hidden, she was altered. It wasn't until her 30s that Judy discovered the truth. Loretta admitted it only once, quietly, and then denied it again publicly. Judy went on to write Uncommon Knowledge, where she bravely told the world about a life lived in the shadow of shame and secrecy. She was a child, denied a name, a parent, and a truth. All for a career. The silver screen glowed with innocence, but behind the lights were contracts, betrayals, and stolen childhoods. These 17 child stars weren't just exploited. They were sold into systems built to profit from their smiles. Their stories serve as a stark reminder. Fame for a child often comes with a devastating price.